time over.
Thank you. I am so excited to be with you because I'm mad, and I'm mad at how much we're just being played and deceived in what's going on, and we just gotta stand up. We just gotta get moving. I vacillate between going fetal position, that it's just too big and it's just too awful. And then I come and I see you all, and I'll go to another meeting on Saturday and speak to some groups, and I think, we just got to stand up, and it doesn't take a lot of people. Next week, you're going to be shocked when we talk next week about how few people it takes to fix what's going on. I don't want to steal the thunder from next week. You got to show up next week, because then you'll find out it just does not take a lot, but we've all got to do our part. So I was telling them earlier, I was thinking about a kind of a new title, and maybe a title for the workbook and the book that's going to come out of this. And I've been thinking about this a lot this week. America only works when we do. Or we could take the only out. America works when we do. If we don't, it doesn't. And for a long time, you know, we had forebears that sacrificed. And they saw the vision of what America is, and they worked and they fought and they struggled and they built this great governing machine, and we thought, oh man, this thing just works on autopilot. And it doesn't. And like any machine, when you defer the maintenance for too long, it's going to take a lot of extra work to get it back. But it's still the greatest governing machine in the history of the world, and we can get it back. We got to do it. So, can you guys online hear okay? Susan, you guys, can you hear all right? Everything good? Awesome. Okay, cool. All right, so this is our deal, right? We've got 6 simple principles, and we're spending time to learn these 6 principles. And so this is week 5, as Tammy said, and we spent a little time to learn the 6 principles. And you know, we're the sovereign we talked about. We're the boss of this machine. It's the structure that secures our rights. The states are responsible for the structure, which means we've got to pay peculiar attention to the people we hire at the state level. They're our trustees. They're the ones that we do our sovereign job through them, right? And then tonight we're going to talk about, how do we delegate? How do we delegate our sovereign responsibility through these state agencies? And then next week, the magic, leverage our voice. And if we do this, these 6 principles, we could do our job in 5 minutes a week, you guys. Is that still good? Everybody still okay with that? Now, we got to do it every single week. We don't get a week off ever again. But as we work together and we start working in these impact groups, and on the website, the iGovern website, you could get in these discussion groups here, and we start chatting and start working about how we get together and work on this. This is how we leverage our voice that we're going to talk about next week. And then on this tab, this learning tab, that's where we've got the workbook for this class. We're kind of buzzing through this stuff really fast, but there's so much material, and we keep adding to it. So there's an electronic workbook online. You just log in to the Impact Community at iGovern, and then under the Learning tab, you can get that there. And then that's also where you can see the videos from past classes and catch up. All right, so let's get rolling. So there's the website. So yeah, you come to Impact Council, sign up, and you get all kinds of other stuff there. So now we're going to do a quick review, right? We've got George Mason. This is kind of our theme statement. No free government or the blessings of liberty could be secured to any people but by frequent recurrence to fundamental principles. In Utah's Constitution, like most other states' constitutions, frequent recurrence to fundamental principles is essential to the security of individual rights and perpetuity of free government. In some states, it says absolutely necessary. Think about that. Frequent recurrence is absolutely necessary if we want our rights protected and if we want free government. If you don't want free government, then just go dance with the stars and, you know, go watch football games and whatever. But if you want our rights protected, our free government to continue, we've got to frequently come back to the fundamental principles. And I think I mentioned before, we found a law review article in Utah that described that provision of our Constitution, that the fundamental principles are, number 1, popular sovereignty. We're the boss. That means America only works when we do, right? And the second principle was federalism. This idea that it's two governments, not one. It's not like this. It's not top down, not hierarchical. It's two governments in a governing partnership, and that balance is critical, and we're responsible for that. Let's do a little review about that. We talked about, founders knew government's like a 2-year-old. Any 2-year-old, as soon as you catch them, don't see me, mom, right? They knew, just like a 2-year-old, if we're not watching it all the time, if we don't have a backup plan, 2-year-old's going to make a mess, and if we don't watch the 2-year-old, it makes a mess. It's not the 2-year-old's fault, because we know that's what they do. And the founders knew that's what government does. And so they developed a governing system with checks and balance and limits and restraints. But it only works if we make sure we know that structure and we do it. This is where we are, guys. We could admire the problem all day long. I was just telling some people before the class started. I was talking to some folks at a think tank. And they just said it's bad. Everybody in Congress knows it's bad. They know the math doesn't work. They know the ship is in trouble. It's taken on water. But they're just going to play, you're the rat, no, it's your fault, no, it's your fault, until they can jump off before it goes down. And guys, it's our country. And that's in our state. So we've got to step up and take care of it. So the analogy we've talked about. You're the boss of this nation, the greatest governing enterprise in the history of the world. But if you're the boss and you don't hardly ever show up, you don't know who your employees are, you don't give them the job description, you don't follow up to see how they're doing, 10 out of 10 times that fails. That's how we're, as the boss of our country, that's how we're operating our country. About a third of us show up in a general election. We don't even know who our state employees are that we hire, that we delegate our sovereignty through. We don't give them the job description because we haven't been frequently recurring to know what to tell them to do. We don't follow up. So it's natural that it's in trouble, but it's easy to just reverse that. So that's what we're talking about. James Wilson, one of my favorite guys, right? George Washington is setting up the very first cabinet. He wins the election unanimously. He's setting up his cabinet. He calls on Judge Wilson, who signed the Declaration, signed the Constitution, original member of the Supreme Court. And George says, hey, Judge Wilson, teach us the principles of this new Constitution. That George Washington presided over the Constitutional Convention, right? That always cracks me up. Teach us about this Constitution. He says the first and fundamental principle in the science of our government is that the people are sovereign. We don't talk about that enough. And in fact, some people will try to denigrate and condescend, oh, sovereign people, and you don't think you should pay tax. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that all power derives from the people. We are responsible for the government. We are the ones that hire agents to run the government for us. Remember, that's good news and bad news, right? Bad news is we're responsible for everything that's happening. The good news is we can change it, right? We're responsible. We can change it. Justice Scalia, fragmentation of power, the division, the balance, the limits of power produced by the structure of our government is central to liberty. That's what they gave us. They didn't say, oh, go elect the best president. Yes, you should do that, but that's not why America succeeded. They didn't say, oh, go get the best policies. We should do that, but that's not why America succeeded. America became the most powerful nation, delivering freedom to the entire world because of the structure of our government. This intricate machine, these limits, the balance, the divisions, and it's critical that we keep it that way. This is what we're taught, right? 5th grade, 8th grade, 11th grade, we're taught, oh, executive, legislative, judicial. That's not our government. That's a single republic, Madison tells us. In a single republic, usurpation, the overreach, is checked by executive, legislative, judicial. But in the compound Republic of America, that's the name he gave our government. In the compound Republic of America, power is first divided between two governments. Think about that. We've got all the power to the people, that's first, but then after that, power is first divided between two governments. It's not first executive, legislative, judicial, that's next. Powers first divided between two distinct governments. They control each other as a double security to the rights of the people. Just like the 2-year-old, right? If you don't have the backup and the checks, double security to the rights of the people. So this is what our government looks like. But we don't ever talk about, we never see or diagram our government like that. Powers first divided between two governments, and then they tell us the power delegated to the national government, few and defined. Few and defined. The power reserved to the states and the people, numerous and indefinite. So in a governing partnership, the federal government is the limited partner. The states are the general partner. That's the design of our government. But if we're not operating based on the design, based on the org chart, we're not going to get the results it was designed to produce. We told the story, right? Like a bicycle. They actually talked about the government as spheres, 2 spheres of government. If we've got a front tire that's so bloated it's about to explode, and a back tire that's so flat it's about to chew the rubber off the rim, the answer is not, should Trump or Harris ride the bike, and should they steer harder to the left or harder to the right? The answer is fix the bike. And then most of the problems can be dealt with here. We look to the national government to, world peace and sound monetary system and focus on that. That's a big enough job. Most of the things are taken care of right where we can go right to the Capitol. Are the representatives our neighbor? That was the structure. That's the vehicle that gets us to this pursuit of happiness. Federal and state governments, they're just different agents and trustees of the people. Remember we talked last week about trustees? We talked about a particular word. Remember the word that we talked about for the people that we elect? Remember what that is? Fiduciary. What does that mean?
In charge of our money.
In charge of our money, in charge of our life, our property, our liberty. It's the highest duty known to law. And when they designed our government, they intended that the people we elect, that we would hold them to be, and that they would act as fiduciaries. The utmost good faith and loyalty, the highest duty known to law. And that state and federal are just different agents for different purposes. Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, right? The general power of governing possessed by the states, not the federal government, is called the police power, right? That's the name of the general power of governing. And then the police power, they tell us, well, that's the power to promote health, peace, morals, education, good order of the people, increase the industries, develop resources, add to its wealth and prosperity. Basically, everything that we think of as government falls within this police power that is possessed by the states and not the federal government, right? But this isn't taught to state legislators, to governors, to attorneys general, anywhere in the nation. Supreme Court's talking about it because they know that's the problem. But this is not taught anywhere. So the whole point of this, right, it's if we've got this football game and we don't even know what the line of scrimmage is, we don't know what out of bounds is, we don't know what the first down is, we don't know what the goal is, then it just looks like 5-year-old soccer. Everybody's following the ball. What's Schumer doing? What's Trump doing? Everybody's just following the ball instead of staying in their lane and saying, okay, we got a line of scrimmage here. We've got limits. We've got things that we're doing within the org chart of our government. That's what we've got to get back to. That's the whole point. Jefferson tells us it's important to strengthen the state governments. It must be done by the states themselves, erecting such barriers at the constitutional line that cannot be surmounted by either government. They talked about that a lot, this constitutional line. Your powers, our powers, then we work as a partnership. You ask a judge, a lawyer, a legislator anymore, they'd be hard-pressed to even tell you that there is a constitutional line, let alone what it is. But does it make sense if we don't know anymore what that division of responsibility is? We're going to have problems in this organization, right? Imagine, you show up, Tammy, Eric, you show up to your office and everybody says, oh, I'm the CEO today. Or the next day everybody shows up, oh, I'm just the janitor today. I'm not the CEO. No, I mean, the roles and responsibilities were critical, especially in the organization they developed for us. Supreme Court quotes Federalist 39. They tell us all the time, states form distinct and independent portions of the supremacy. Federal agents come in, and because in Article 6 it says, Constitution, the laws made pursuant thereto shall be the supreme law of the land, they come in and say, oh, we're supreme in everything. No, no, no. They're just supreme in those few things delegated to them. States are supreme in everything else. Again, that's not taught anywhere. John Dickinson, the penman of the Revolution, he said it'll be their own fault. It'll be their own fault if the several states allow the federal government to interfere in their sovereignty, which means it'll be our own fault if we hire people that don't know this and we don't require them to maintain those constitutional lines, right? So, just like the tug of war, that tension is critical. The Supreme Court has told, so you get the news and you get from the federal side when states push back, they act like that's a bad thing. No, that's how the government was designed. It was designed to have healthy tension, this push and pull. You know, you think of the San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge and that suspension bridge, you've got that tension is what holds it in place. That's what our government was designed to be. The tension between the federal and state powers, that's where the promise of our liberty lies. That's not a bad thing. When people say, oh, the states are trying to push back, yeah, they are. That's their job. That's their job, to make sure we know and maintain that constitutional line. That's that double security to our liberty. Rob Natelson, right, we put in here, he's talked about just coming from Madison, and there are a bunch of others. I'm not going to pretend this is an exhaustive list, but right now state leaders aren't taught at all what the tools in the toolbox are. These are just some of them that come from Madison in Federalist 28, but states have, public relations, teaching, lobbying Congress, legal challenges, state legislation, coordination among the states, Article 5, nullification. And then he even said that, revolution, that's not one we even talk about until we've used all the tools in the toolbox. But in the Declaration, it says the people retain the right to alter and abolish the government if it's not protecting their rights and providing good government. Again, we don't even talk about that until we've figured out and used all of these others together. That means we have a job to hire people that know the structure of the government, to train the people that we hire on what the structure of the government is, on what their powers are to maintain that constitutional line that is the double security to our rights. Again, the Supreme Court Chief Justice says states are separate, independent sovereigns. Sometimes they have to act like it. If you shared that quote just out in public and didn't tell people who said that, can you imagine what they would say who said that? Right? Oh, some crazy nut job, radical, whatever, right? That's the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. States are separate and independent sovereigns. Sometimes they have to act like it. That's where that promise of our liberty lies. So this is the blueprint. This is the job description that we need to make sure all of our state leaders understand. There is a constitutional line. This is a governing partnership. Federal government has very, very few responsibilities. Most everything else is at the state level. We need to make sure we know what that is and that we know what our powers are to do that. That's the job description we give to our state leaders. And until that's done, until we get that vehicle back in shape, there's not a lot else we need to be focused on. We've got to make sure the vehicle's working. All right, so again, this is all review. We're going to start on the new stuff here in just a second. But Constitution in 4 words, right? You know it. Right? Go ahead.
If government, which one?
If government, which government, right? If government is the 9th Amendment. People don't talk about the 9th Amendment. It says the powers enumerated in the Constitution shall not be construed to deny or disparage all other rights retained by the people. Just because it's in the Constitution, that doesn't mean everything else belongs to the people. Think about that, right? All power starts right here. We give some of it to government. Everything else stays here. That's the 9th Amendment. So the first question is, Whenever government comes up with a great idea, oh, I'm going to make the world better by doing this. First question, did we delegate that power to government? Any government. If not, stop right there. Second question then is, if we did delegate it to government, war and peace, that's a government thing. Monetary system, that's a government thing. Roads, sanitation, those are all government things. If it is something we delegated to government, which one? Government far away, less accountable, less transparent, very, very few things. And that's what the Constitution enumerates. Everything else is reserved to the states, and then the state has local governments that it delegates things to do things at the local level. All right, so now this is what we talked about last week, right? You guys wouldn't just let me, because hey, I'm an elected official, you wouldn't just let me take your wallet and go home with it, right? You probably wouldn't even let me just hold on to it for a couple of minutes. You'd get a little worked up if I said, hey, could I just hold your wallet? Could I just look through it and, do whatever I want with it? You'd get a little concerned about that, wouldn't you? Every 2 years, we put our life, our liberty, our property into the hands of people that we elect. We don't hardly even know anything about them, for the most part. Do they know the government? Do they know what a fiduciary is? Have they proven that they're willing to hold that power, that responsibility as a fiduciary? Do they have the skills to be able to operate this government? That's our responsibility for hiring. What could be more absurd than that a person wholly ignorant of the Constitution should presume to make laws pursuant thereto? I'll tell you what's more absurd. We allow the people we elect to make laws without knowing the Constitution or the laws, right? That's a lot more absurd. And so that's where we've got to start working on this. 3 groups of people handle other people's money, right? Children, thieves, politicians, they all need adult supervision. That's the heart of the fiduciary duty. Somebody else managing someone else's money. One of the hardest things in the world to do, to manage someone else's money, property, life, liberty with ultimate fidelity. That's that fiduciary duty. Government is a trust. We need to get that in our mind. Government is a trust. We're hiring trustees. Do they have the power, the knowledge? We need to interview people to know these things, to know they have the knowledge and the power to do that. Representatives should think, feel, act like their constituents, right? We're electing people that would think and act like we would if we took the time to do that in office. Selecting people in office, let principle be your guide. Not party, not denomination, but look to the character of people. That's the critical thing. And Lincoln tells us people of the United States are the rightful masters of both Congress and courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the people who would pervert the Constitution. We're the watchmen on the tower. We're the ones that need to be watching that, which means we need to know. All right, that's our review from last week. So this was your homework assignment last week, right? Contact your state agents. Find out all the ways that you can contact them. Get their information in your phone. Get them on speed dial, right? These are the people you've hired to delegate your sovereignty through. How'd we do in our homework? All right. AFP can help you with that, right? They can help you get all that through, right? You got to follow up. But seriously, social media, phone numbers, all of that. Make sure you know, yeah.
I invited Norm Thurston to the Fall Impact Conference that's happening this Saturday.
Excellent. And so then that goes into the next one, right? Learn 3 new things about one of your state agents, right? And what we're going to talk about tonight is how do we grow our influence. We do that by knowing who they are, knowing what's important to them, right? So learning about the people that we've hired is critical. We'll talk more about that tonight. We did this class one time and we had someone say, I contacted my representative and found out that they had a child that died of a certain disease at a certain age, just like my child. And immediately we had this bond. It makes a difference, right? The more we know about people, the more we're able to work together. I think if we really knew people from any walk of life, if we really knew their backstory, we'd understand more about where they're coming from. We need to know the people we've hired to protect our life, liberty, property. tonight we're on number 5. This is how we delegate our sovereign responsibility. We call it the 3 Ps. We're going to get into that tonight. This is how we get to the 5 minutes a week. All right, so by the end of tonight, you're going to be inspired to go thank or compliment one of your state agents and understand why that matters. And you're going to go talk to one of your state agents and ask them what you can do to help them be better at the job you hired them to do for you. Okay, so John Hancock, greatest ability in business. This guy was a pretty good business guy, right? Greatest ability in business is to get along with others and to influence their actions. You guys, I have in my desk, the right drawer of my desk at the Capitol, I almost hesitate to tell you what it is. It's a bag of gummy candy male genitalia that someone took the time to go find and buy and put in an envelope and mail to me. That's not how you're going to influence your representatives, I can guarantee you. I saved it for comic relief, but we're working on how do we influence people. John Maxwell, one of the greatest leadership gurus in the world, he's written a gajillion books on leadership, and he boils all of it down to the true measure of leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. What influence do we have with the people we've hired to protect our rights? And how do we grow that influence? Let's see what we can find out. State legislatures will jealously and closely watch. This is James Madison. James Madison introducing the Bill of Rights in the first Congress. Right? They had this debate over ratifying the Constitution. There were a bunch of states that said, we're not going to ratify it without a Bill of Rights. And so they agreed that in the first Congress they would include a Bill of Rights. And so doing that in the first Congress, James Madison's now a congressman. And he says the state legislatures will jealously and closely watch the operations of the national government. They'll be able to resist with more effect every assumption of power better than any power on earth can do, because they're the sure guardians of the people's liberty. Your state legislatures, the sure guardians of the people's liberty. That's how they saw it. Not even the governor, not even the AG. Your state legislature. Now, certainly your governor, your AG, they have roles to play, and we've already talked about how the states are responsible. These are the people we've got to get to know. Now, as you're getting to know them, Jefferson told us something about people that seek public office. He said they fall into 2 camps. Those who fear and distrust the people and want to draw all power from them into the hands of higher classes. Those who identify themselves with the people and have confidence in them. Think about that as you're looking at your representatives. Which camp do they fall into? And as you're hiring new representatives, who are you looking for? Do you want the people that are smug and want to draw power away from the people, or do you want people that understand, you guys are the boss of this operation. I work for you, and understand how that works. They were very clear about these things. So, you guys, I met a billionaire a couple of years ago in Texas. This guy was like 40. He had just come back from a hella skiing thing, and he hurt his knee and, all kinds of first world problems, right? But as we're sitting... But as we're sitting there with him, and we sat with this guy for about an hour, and he's just barking out to people, hey, he'd have an idea. You, go get this person and go start this business. You, go get this person and go start this business. He probably started 5 companies while we sat there. This guy has 50,000 people that work for him in different companies. How many people do you think actually report to him? About 5. Right? About 5. They call it the span of control. In almost any company, we can't have everybody report to us. You're the boss of the greatest governing enterprise in the history of the world. And they designed it so that you have 4 to 5 people that report to you. Isn't that cool? They knew this long before the science came around. You've got a state representative, a state senator, an attorney general, a governor, and a sheriff. And they report directly to you. And their job is to keep the federal government in balance and to protect your rights and take care of all of the things that concern your daily life at the state level. They're the ones that work for you. They're the ones that live around the corner from you. They're the ones you can go up to the Capitol and get an audience with them. If it's a governor or an attorney general, you get a few people together, we're going to talk about next week, you can get an audience with the governor, with the attorney general, if you're leveraging your voice. That's the span of control, and they designed our government that way, that you could govern this entire nation from right where you live. Remember, there was a leader here a little while ago that talked about lift where you stand. Our government is just like that, lift where you stand. We focus on our representative, our senator, our attorney general, our governor from right where we live, right in our district. So the 3 P's, you guys, to do this: personal, professional, and persistent. I served in a Spanish-speaking church group one time and for a couple of years, and there was this lady that had fled Venezuela, and her husband was a political guy with Chavez, and she fled for her life with her little boy, and we're kind of helping him on some things. And this little boy, Juan, I'm sitting there and he's in my car, and I'm just kind of making conversation with him, and he's learning English. And I'm sorry, his name was Jose, actually. I said, Jose, what do you think are what's the most important word in Spanish for me to learn? And without missing a beat, he says, gracias. And then he says, y por favor. A 4-year-old little kid knows the secret. Gracias, y por favor. Please and thank you. When I have legislators in a class like this that we do, I'll ask them, hey, how many times do you hear thank you in the course of a legislative session or in the course of your service as a legislator? You know how they answer? They just laugh right out loud. Like, are you kidding? Thank you? Thank you? You say please, you say thank you to those you've hired to do really difficult jobs, you're going to stand out of the crowd. They talk about in business 10 attaboys for every critique. Some people call it a crap sandwich, right? You want to have a couple of good things with the crap in the middle, With legislators, I say, okay, if it's 10 to 1, they say 10 attaboys to 1 critique. And I'd ask legislators, how many complaints, how many attacks do you get for 1 thank you, 1 compliment? They'd say, it's probably about 1,000 to 1. 1,000 to 1. You want to stand out in the crowd? You want to grow your influence with your state leaders? Please and thank you. How hard is that? Just be nice. Just please and thank you. I had somebody tell me once, well, I don't like anything about my leader, so-and-so. I said, well, do you like the way he ties his shoes? If he's bald, do you like the way he combs his hair? I don't care what it is. Just go compliment them, thank them, express some kindness, some courtesy. It goes a long way. Now, if you just, you want to send all cap emails and you want to just unload yourself and have no influence with the people you hired you've delegated your sovereignty to them, great, go do that. But you're going to have no influence with them. You'll get an all cap email out and you'll get your frustration out. I would suggest get a therapist for that. With your agents, you want to figure out how to grow your influence. The next one is professional. Story on this one. So I started as a delegate. I was a delegate, and we're trying to figure out, we've got to hire the right people in Washington and get the right senator and get the right people in Congress. And we were interviewing them and asking questions about the debt and the deficit back in the good old days when it was like 4 trillion and 5 trillion, Now it grows 4 to 5 trillion every year or 2. But we're trying to figure out what's going on. We actually had someone that was a senator, not there anymore, but they said, well, if I did that, then I'd be marginalized at parties. Or he said, I'd be marginalized. And I said, well, great. They wouldn't like you at parties. If you go out and actually try to do the job and try to keep the debt from growing and try to balance a budget, you'd be marginalized. And so it hit us. I had this really good friend that we were going around together, and it hit us that we're not going to solve this problem in Washington, ever. We're not going to solve the problem in Washington. We need to focus on the states. And we had been studying some of this stuff and kind of figuring some of these things out. And we said, we've got to find good people at the state level. We got to find people at the state level that understand how to restore that balance. And as we're driving home and we're thinking, okay, who could we get to work at the state level, state representative and senator? And he says, well, what about you? I said, oh man, not me. I'm just starting my business. I've got a young family. I've got all kinds of responsibilities. And he says, well, you know, you can remember things. You've got quotes off the tip of your tongue and, you know, the policy and the things like that. You can articulate it. And then he finally said, just pray about it. And you guys, I'm proof that God has a sense of humor, right? Yeah, just pray about it and there you go. But that's how we started in that. And what he told me, he said, look, I can't do what you could do. I can't do that job, but I can help you. And so if you get elected, I'll do your financial reporting as long as you're in office. Because I got elected in 2010. This person has been doing my financial reports for 15 years without a complaint, without payment, he sends me the report to review and send in. That saves me, I can't even tell you how much time. And then the frustration, because I hate that stuff. So, not that this is a quid pro quo. I don't want to suggest. What's that? That's exactly right. I need to thank him more often, 100%. But you guys, when he's got an issue that he cares about and he texts or emails or calls, how fast do you think I respond to him? Right? Like that. Again, not that this is a quid pro quo. We like to work with people that we like. All things being equal, we're going to do things with people that we like, that we know, that are helping us and doing things for us, making our life easier. So that's the idea of professional. What can you do to help them be better at this really difficult job you hired them to do? And I've kind of decided it breaks down to two things: money and manpower. Right? So manpower, that's kind of what I was just talking about. What can you do to help them? You know, financial report, getting ready for committee hearings, campaigns, signs, committees, making phone calls, helping with legislation. There's all kinds of things you can help, you know, part-time state legislators, even governors and attorneys general. There are all kinds of things you can do to help them be easy, you know, make it easier for them to do their job. Now, money, this is one I want you to remember. So if you're going to donate to the people that you are electing to work for you, and I suggest that you do, almost without regard to what party they're in. But when you do it, I'm suggesting that you do it regularly and you make it a really bizarre amount. You know, like $5.21 every quarter. $317.16 every year. And I'll tell you why. There's a group that has done that, and they send me this check every year for, you know, $563.10. And one time I finally asked him, I said, what's up with that? How come you send this odd amount, this 500 and whatever dollars? He says, well, because you notice. You notice. It sticks in your mind. A $500 check, there's, you know, those come, $100 check, a $10 check. You write a really odd amount and you do it regularly, you stand out. They know that you're supporting them. You stand out in the crowd. Same thing, when you've got a phone call or something that you're concerned about, they know that you've been helping them. And so, again, just ways to grow your influence. So now this one, remember, personal, professional, persistence. Persistence is pretty self-explanatory, right? Push until something happens. Don't ever give up. I had a lady constituent. She had this workers' comp issue, and she wasn't particularly personal. She wasn't particularly professional, but doggone it, every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, I got a call from her. And if I didn't have the answer to what was going on, I put her number in my phone so I knew who it was, and so I'd send it to voicemail so that I could then call legislative council, because I knew she was going to call me again the next Wednesday. She never, ever gave up, and we ultimately passed this bill. I have people that call me, tell me all the time in these classes, well, I called my representative, they didn't do anything. Oh, really? So if you have a business and you ask an employee to do something and they don't do it, do you just walk away from your business? Of course not, right? If you've got an employee, you've asked them to do something and they don't do it, what are you going to do? You're going to come up and say, hey, let's have a little chat here. Here's what I need to see happen. Here's the program here, and I'd really like to give you an opportunity to do this. And you kind of work, and you teach, and you set the expectation. Next week, we're going to talk about what happens when they ultimately don't. What we do, right, like they said before, the ultimate relief is a change of the people. If they're not going to be the fiduciary and they're not going to treat it like a trust, then you change the people that are in there. Next week, we're going to talk about how few people it actually takes to do that. You're going to be shocked by that. Any of you remember in the 1970s, 80s, there was a book called The 1 Minute Manager, right? Ken Blanchard, and he had the 1 minute goal settings and the 1 minute praisings and the 1 minute reprimands. This is what we're talking about. We're going to make it 5 minutes because maybe we're not as good as Ken Blanchard. But with our people, we're going to talk about how once a week we're going to set the expectation. And maybe the next week, if that expectation isn't clear, we're going to make sure where we're at. We're going to praise when that's needed. We're going to redirect when that's necessary. But this is all about, let's see, I think I've got it in there, the 5-minute servant sovereign. This is how we're going to start delegating our sovereign responsibility through these people that we've hired. That's the beauty of our system. We're in charge, but we don't have to go lift the shovel. We don't have to go, drive the tractor. But we've got to direct the people that do. We've got to make sure we have the right people on the right machines doing the right job. This question, I hope you just burn in your mind as the boss of the country. As a servant leader, how can I serve you? How can I serve you, these people that we've hired that are doing a really kind of a thankless job, literally thankless job? How can we help them be better at this job that protects our life and our liberty and our property? We'll talk more about that as we go, but that's what this whole I Govern thing is about. It's about the servant sovereign continuing education center. How do we learn to be that servant leader so that we've got these people that are more and more effective at securing our rights? And the methods that we have to do this are incredible. You guys, they started this country nailing notes to trees, riding horses from town to town. Look at what we can do. Now the hierarchy of how we do this, I'm going to tell you that the very, very best way to ever communicate to your agents is going to be face-to-face. You can get face-to-face. That's always going to be more influential. Video conference works. Man, think about that. They would have flipped out on that one, right? But personal intermediary, I had people in the class say, I don't know my representative, but boy, I know his wife. And that's almost better, right? You get more done. Maybe you know the chief of staff. Phone call, voice to voice, handwritten note. I can't overemphasize the power of a handwritten note. I still have today handwritten notes that people have written me over, legislation or various things. Text message, if you can get that. Remember the importance of getting their information in your phone, having them on speed dial. Personal email. When you send an email or a letter, any kind of a communication that's not face-to-face, you want to make sure you communicate, I'm a constituent. And I'd recommend putting your address in, because I get people that email me all the time, I'm a constituent. Really? If I check the email a little bit, I've got to look at the bottom, you're sending it from Timbuktu. I'm a constituent. This is where I live. That will get you to the top of the list much faster. Social media, direct messages in social media. There's all kinds of ways to do direct messages in Facebook and Instagram and all the others. Take advantage of that. And those of you, I'm a Luddite in all of that. I'm up to speed on Facebook. I'm working on Twitter, X, and some of these others. You guys, they gave us these tools to protect our liberty. Learn all the ways that you can communicate with your agents. Form email, if you've got no other way and no other time but a form email, great. If you can personalize it a little bit, that's great. Be sure to put, the I'm a constituent in there. If you can't do any of those, then smoke signal, carrier pigeon, I don't care. But every week we're going to communicate with at least one of our agents, and we're going to probably take no more than 5 minutes to do it. Some weeks we may have things going on, and we're going to talk about how we can help each other. You can do it in less than 30 seconds. But we're going to communicate every single week. And there's a couple of reasons that that's important. They're going to know that you're paying attention. Even if so once a month, you're going to be reaching out to state representative one week. Next week, state senator. Next week, attorney general. Next week, the governor. Week after that, you're back to your state representative. And even if you send a text that's just, a 30-second text, they know every month. These folks are paying attention. They're running their government. It matters, you guys. So I want you to think about what Thomas Jefferson or Benjamin Franklin would have thought. What would Thomas Jefferson have been able to do with a Facebook page? Right? Can you imagine Benjamin Franklin with a YouTube channel? That would have been the best YouTube channel in history. Right? I mean, his Poor Richard's Almanac and all this stuff, the things he would have put on there. We have communication tools they could not have dreamed of. They were literally cutting the heads off of drums to write notes to send to people. We can reach more people before we get out of our pajamas in the morning. We can communicate to the people that we've hired sitting right here. You could pop up a note right now. Hey, I'm learning about this. Bam, thought you'd like to know. But that relationship and building that influence is critical. Some of the things we can communicate, right? The ways we can help them understand what we're learning about the structure. This is not taught to state legislators anywhere. To state leaders, it's not taught. And we'll talk about some of the ways that we'll do this going forward. There are some tools that we've built in Utah through UVU. We've got this federalism index where we're actually measuring the things that the federal government's doing to cross over the line. We've got this thing called a federalism policy tracker where we're tracking everything that they're doing that infringes on the jurisdiction authority of the states. You can search it by executive, legislative, judicial action at the federal level. You can search it by the state committees that we have, transportation, education, natural resources. You could combine that. You could search, hey, I want to know all the federal intrusions that involve natural resources by the legislative branch. And it'll filter out and give you a list. Think of the power when you're communicating to your state leaders, hey, I'm concerned about what the federal government is doing intruding on education. Or I'm concerned about what the court just did that's disrupting that balance. There's another part of this that is a state policy tracker that you can search the things states are doing to restore that balance. Same thing. Imagine communicating. They don't know about this. This isn't being taught to people yet. These are tools for you to help them do that job. This is the little book that I wrote it to myself as my own job description. I didn't intend it to be a book. I wanted to know what my responsibility was when it says in the Constitution, members of the state legislatures are bound by oath or affirmation to uphold the U.S. Constitution. What did that mean? So that's what got me into all this. I started studying and looking at that. You can download that for free here. You can get hard copies. I'll bring more hard copies next week. You can get it on Amazon or whatever as well. But I wrote that book as my job description. Feel free to use that if it's helpful in working with your legislators. What we're working towards, you guys, we're working towards lifting where we stand, where you work right in your legislative district. You go out, this whole idea of multi-level liberty, you go out and contact 3 other people, and you get 3 other people, and help them get 3 other people. We get to where we have 10 people in our legislative district that understand what it means to be the boss and to start working with our state leaders. You get 20 people in your Senate district. You start working on 100 people in your legislative district. You get 100 people in your legislative district that know this, you're gonna be lighting things on fire. You've got a governor that'll come meet with you, an attorney general that'll come meet with you whenever you want to set it up, because you've now leveraged your voice. We're going to talk about that more next week. But we're working on, in every legislative district, at least 100 people, so you leverage your voice so that you can influence the state agents that you've hired to restore that balance, because that's what secures our rights. And we're only going to take 5 minutes a week to do it. How's that? Next week, we're going to talk about the last principle. And then we'll start talking about the 5 minutes. But this is where we organize. So at igovern.us, we've got all these states. We've got a whole bunch of people online here. Hi, guys. And we're working on getting these people in here so that we coordinate. We leverage our voice. Now, as we leverage our voice in our legislative districts, we're going to do that in other states. We call this 10 by 10. So you get 10,000 people in at least 10 states. And if we've got, man, I'm excited. I want to give away the punchline for next week. I'm so excited to tell you about how we leverage our voice. But as we're doing that in our state, we get 10,000 people in 10 states, we now move the nation. Because we've got states that are now restoring that balance. And that's what that summit was 2 weeks ago. The summit of states that we had, it was phenomenal, you guys. And so the follow-up that we're doing on that, it's already starting to move, so you've got things to take them to. All right, so here's where we are. Your assignment for this week, I want you to go out and thank or compliment at least one of your state agents, all right? Can you do that? Is that too hard for anybody? Nobody? Okay, good. I'm gonna hold you accountable next week. Thank them, compliment them, right? Whatever it is, let them know you're watching and you're grateful. You've seen things that they've done. And then the second one, this one's going to blow them away because they don't hear this ever. But you go ask them, how can I help you be better at this job we've hired you to do, we've elected you to do? What can I do to help you? And they're going to be so floored, they're going to go, oh my heavens, nobody's ever asked me that. And you'll say, that's fine, I'll follow up with you in a week or so. And you do. You're going to stand out. Immediately, your influence is going to go up so much because you're now helping them. You've now, and without even telling them, I'm the boss of you, you don't ever want to say that. You don't have to say that. You're just acting like the servant leader. I'm responsible for this nation. I'm the sovereign of this nation. You're my agent. How can I, you don't have to say any of that, but you're just coming up, how can I help you be better at this job that helps me and my family, that helps our state and our nation? I'm excited. I want you guys, seriously, I want to hear your responses next week and what you hear back on this. All right, so next week we're going to start on, we've been through these 5. Next week it gets fun. Next week's multi-level liberty. Next week is how we leverage our voice. Any one of us is only 1 out of 40,000 in a House district, 1 out of 120,000 in a Senate district. So as we leverage our voice, that's how we act and govern. We're going to learn about that next week. This is where we're going to organize and do that at the iGovern. You guys, right now, we're leaving it worse than we found it. We're leaving this nation substantially worse than we found it. And, you know, if ever a time should come when vain and aspiring men shall possess the highest seats of our government, you can think of who that is, right? Our country will stand in need of its experienced patriots to prevent its ruin. That's you all. And the reason I'm going to come and do this is because I got this little guy that I care about. And I need to leverage my voice just like you need to leverage your voice. And we've all got somebody like that, and they're all going to, 2 questions, right? You remember the 2 questions? Did you see this coming? Did you see the debt that's coming at me? Did you see the decay of government that's coming at me? Did you see what life is going to be like for me? And the next question is going to be, what'd you do about it? And we're going to be able to say, you know what? We're locking in together. We don't have to do a lot, but we're going to lift where we stand, and we're going to make this happen, you guys. Structure our government central to liberty. If we destroy it, we put liberty at peril. We're going to put our structure of government back in place, and you're the answer to that. Thank you very much.